Bill, it's a hell of a thing to say. He's a young balloonist compared to me. We have talked about long jump for a long time. We have practiced a couple out here. I got involved with one with George Hahn back in the day. And we ended up close to Roswell on our little trek that we took, which is nothing compared to what Bill has done. He is right now, they're saying, the U.S. record holder for long jump. He may be the world record holder for long jump. I'm not sure that anybody's kept track of that yet, but this guy traveled at 109 miles an hour to set this record. That's just minor stuff that he's involved. Tonight, Bill's going to speak, I believe, on the Gordon Bennett, which is a unique gas race. We have one out here that is, actually I call it a challenge, the Gordon Bennett, because the America's Challenge is the gas race in this country that I feel equals the Gordon Bennett. Gordon Bennett has the years of prestige, that type of thing, but I'll tell you, our flying conditions out here make their distances look like, they're small compared to what we can accomplish out here. So gas ballooning in the community is growing, and I think Bill in his talk tonight can help us understand what you have to go through to get involved in this. Thank you. Bill?
Well, thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here tonight. I want to thank everybody for the invitation, and for Peter, Barbara, for your hospitality, having me at their house. Had a good time today. Got to visit the museum and got to get a little local flavor here. I've enjoyed my visit. I was asked to come and talk about long jumps, and I am going to touch on that a little bit towards the end, but there's really not much to tell about that. What is an interesting story, and I think you'll really enjoy tonight, is my experience as a hot air pilot in the Gordon Bennett. So it's an interesting story, and just bear with me, and I'm going to jump into this, and then we'll talk long jumps. First of all, what is the Gordon Bennett? You may have read about it in Ballooning magazine. Well, if you read about it in Ballooning magazine, don't automatically turn me off and say, oh, I've already heard this story, I'm going back to sleep. What I'm going to tell you tonight is the back side of that story. There's about 10, maybe 12, 15 things that happened that weren't in Ballooning magazine that I think you'll really enjoy. So bear with me, and you're going to hear, as Paul Harvey used to say, the rest of the story. First of all, the Gordon Bennett, there we go. The Gordon Bennett is the oldest aviation competition in the world. It started in 1906. It had a long hiatus during World War II, all the way up until, 1980s or something, they started it back. So this is the 67th year of it. It's the premier racing event, balloon racing event in the world. It's a big deal in Europe. I mean, it's Albuquerque and more in Europe. The FAI, the Federation Aviation Internationale, operates it, and they set the rules and the standards. Each country has an aviation club, and in the U.S., the National Aeronautics Association is our club, and they determine how they select people for the race. So the AAA says that America's Challenge is the way we select the America's entries into this race. And in 2017, we had a really, really good America's Challenge. Broke all records. We had Andy Caton, well, we had the French, or the Swiss, correction, the Swiss came in first, went all the way up to Newfoundland from here. I think most of you remember that. I don't have to tell you anything you don't already know. Andy Caton came in second. Barbara and Peter were third, ended up in New Hampshire, I believe. And Mark and Sherry White were fourth. So the top three American teams, they had the right to enter the Gordon Bennett. Two of them chose to take place. So Andy was one of the entrants, and he Let me tell you a little story about Andy. I was getting ready to, I'm contemplating, and any day now, I may try to break the world distance record in the AX8, AX9 category. Andy currently holds that record. I had just called Lindstrand 2 or 3 days prior to whatever this date is, April 4th, and said, I want you to make me a 105, all black, lightweight fabric. I'm going to break the world's record. Okay, well, we can do that. A couple days later, I get this text from Andy Caton, who holds the record. I said, oh no, Andy Caton, he doesn't know me, I don't know him. What's he doing texting me about the record I'm trying to break? I thought he was going to give me a bunch of you know what. And then he says, Sherry White told me you might be interested in doing a Gordon Bennett race. If so, please call me back. I said, what? I get on my Wikipedia, Gordon Bennett, gas balloon race usually held in Europe. I didn't even know what the Gordon Bennett was. So I responded back to Andy that, are you sure you got the right guy? He said, yeah, Sherry said you were interested. I said, hey, I never said anything to Sherry. Anyhow, come to find out, all you need to be a co-pilot in the Gordon Bennett, you got to have a hot air balloon certificate, be a pilot. You got to be able to speak English. You got to be an NAA member. You got to get a FAI sporting license from the NAA. You got to pay them the dues. You got to be a BFA member. You got to join the gas division. Come to find out, I had to do that. All right, better join the gas division. And that's pretty much it. So, oh, and a medical certificate if applicable. So I took care of all that, and I said, yeah, Andy, I can do that. I'll be your co-pilot.
There.
I'll be your co-pilot. There we go. Sorry about that. But I'm still trying to find out why he asked me. Come to find out, Sherry White was working with Tim Cloyd on the long jump committee, trying to prove a bunch of my observers. And apparently Tim talked to Sherry and said, you know, I'd like to do that gas balloon stuff sometime. That got in the back of Sherry's brain, and then when Andy was looking for a co-pilot, she said, you know, Tim Cloyd was talking to me about Bill Smith. I think Bill Smith wants to do it. So that's how I got involved. I was a totally innocent bystander about this, and I got sucked into it. So there's the teams, the way they lined up. We had 2 USA teams there at the bottom, alphabetical order. Total of, I think it was 24, 26 teams. My thoughts were, I don't get into anything that I don't understand, don't know what I'm doing. I don't do stupid. And to me, getting in a gas balloon in the Gordon Bennett, not knowing what I was doing, was pretty stupid. So my thoughts were to go over to Germany and to get some training with Willie. You've probably all heard about Willie Eimers over there. And I was going to go in July. I contacted them in April, and we had it all set up for July. And then Andy said, you know, we're going to Germany early before the race. We're going to borrow a balloon. We got to take it down to Willie's, and we got to get 1 flight under our belt with that balloon that we're borrowing. That's the deal. He said, we'll get your training then. So we just went to Germany early. So I did not go in July. We went in September. Went over to the Lausch's place in Mulheim, and they loaned us a balloon or rented us a balloon. Picked out a basket, and this is Hans Otto on the right there, and his wife Marion. He's a dentist, she's a gynecologist. And this guy is 2 guys from Holland, our Dutch crew members, myself and Andy. The basket we selected, Andy picked out the smallest one. Obviously, there was no way I was, oh, sorry about that. There was no way I was going to be able to stretch out in it.
Not at all.
But they thought it was funny. So, and Marion, she's taller than me now. She's like 6'2", very, very well-proportioned woman, and she said she sleeps under that little bench I was trying to sleep on, so I don't know. But she's a very accomplished gas pilot herself. The name of their balloon is the white pill in the sky. She's a gynecologist. She prescribes pills, and it's her balloon. So that's D stands for Germany. O is gas balloon, and then the GYN is her numbers. So it's a pretty nice balloon, a Werner 1,000 cubic foot, or 1,000 cubic meters, correction, and a fairly small basket, but we checked that out and we headed on down. Now, one of the things that Marion insisted that we take was her little honey pot. Hers is the one on the right. And Andy says, no, we're not using that. We're going to use the Texas size one on the left. Andy brought that in a duffel bag all the way from South Carolina, from Georgia, in a duffel bag. So he was insisting on not using her pot. We wondered, we joked about, how does Marion get on that thing?
Very careful.
So we picked up our balloon. We head down to Gladbeck. Gladbeck is what I consider the gas balloon capital of the world. This is the clubhouse at Gladbeck. Willie's, we call it Willie's Place. I think everybody calls it Willie's Place. It's got a large park, almost, I guess, as big as Central Park in New York. A huge park. It's got museum. It's got tennis courts, walking trails. In one corner of the park is the balloon field. They've got a really nice clubhouse there, and they've got a lot of pilots in Europe. They've got about 150 active gas pilots, where the U.S. has about 30. And they run flights out of there every morning, just like we do hot air. They have gas balloon flights. You pay about 350 euros, and you get on Willie's flight, and off you go with 3 or 4 other people, and you fly for about 3 hours to 4 hours. It's a great deal. If you're interested in gas ballooning, this is the place to go. This is really first-class operation. For people that are pilots or crew, the clubhouse has a nice meeting room, and there's always somebody down there drinking beer. They come there after work in the evening. It's just a place to hang out. Upstairs, they've got 3 bedrooms, and for $10 a night, you can stay there. The hotel where we've stayed at is like $150 a night.
Okay.
Willie says, you can stay down here. We tried to check out of the hotel, and they said, okay, but you don't get any money back. We already got your money. So we didn't stay there, but we were invited, and it's really nice accommodation. So if you go over and take a training flight with Willie, $10 a night, you got your personal bedroom there. It's really nice. This is outside the clubhouse. On the right, inside the fenced-in area, is a hydrant. This is the hydrant where the hydrogen gas comes from I believe they call it the rock wool factory. So I guess they're making insulation. 5 miles away, they pipe this gas in to this hydrant. And all they do is they got a fire hose inside that door, they hook it up to the hydrant, roll it out, turn it on, and they got gas. So their gas is basically free. And that's how they're doing all these flights. Now, the interesting little side story, and I don't want this to leave the room. I'm sure nobody's going to tell. I was supposed to fly on Saturday, bad weather. Sunday was bad weather. I thought I was going to fly Monday, and they said, no, the Australian team is going to go up for an orientation flight. You're going to go Tuesday. But come on out Monday and meet Willie and get squared away. So Monday afternoon, we get out there, and where's Willie? He's not here. We've had some problems. So the Australians came in. And we said, what's going on? Did you have a good flight this morning? Yeah, we had a great flight, but what? They landed in a hayfield, set the balloon down, the pilot started deflating it, a gust of wind caught it and laid it over a fence, a barbed wire fence, poked holes in it. But in Europe, most of the barbed wire fences are electrified. It sparked, it ignited, and they had the Hindenburg. This is about a bushel basket size container of what's remaining of that balloon fabric. And I'm there Monday evening saying, I'm going up in this stuff tomorrow morning. This is all they got to show for it. You know, I'm a hot air guy, and I don't know about this. So, you know, I want you to remember, as my tale goes on, this is in the back of my mind, this little basket of ashes. And I won't say who was involved in it, but it was a hush-hush thing. They really don't want it advertised that, you know, they had an accident. And, they were on the ground, but the balloon was totally destroyed. So Willie comes in later and he said, "Oh yeah, you're still on for tomorrow morning. Be here at 4:30 a.m., fill sandbags." Did that. We got our sandbags filled and off we went. All right, so they laid the balloon out right in front of the clubhouse. There's the fire hose coming off of the hydrant. That hose is only about 50 feet long. They got stakes in the ground where they stake the basket in, hook it up to cables, shoot the gas to it, and up it goes. Okay, there's Sherry and Mark, and they were going to go up with me. So we get the balloon stood up, fill it the remaining way, and off we go. There's the sandbag, the sand pile, the clubhouse right there. And you can see the hose comes out of the hydrant here and just goes right over to the launch spot. Pretty nice operation. We took off at about 6 a.m., I guess. It was about an hour before sunrise, so we got a real nice dawn patrol type flight. You can see in the background all the industrial areas where they generate all this hydrogen. And somewhere 5 miles away is the Rockwool plant, and the pipeline comes right to the balloon park. Crossed the Rhine River, got out of the urban area, and then we got out into more balloon-friendly areas. So it was a beautiful flight. Sherry was at the helm for maybe 15 minutes. She wanted to get current. Mark was there maybe 10, 15 minutes, and the rest of the time Willie was doing one-on-one with me. So I got about a 4-hour lesson for $300. I was the only paying passenger on board, by the way. So $300, can you beat that? So like I say, if you're interested in getting just a taste of gas ballooning, and these guys ain't gonna take you. They got, you got a waiting list, right? And it's really tough being a hot air person to get a gas balloon ride. So if you'd like to taste it, take a little trip to Germany. $300 gets you a flight with Willie. Now here's one of the things Willie tried. This is Willie on the right there. He kept impressing me on me. He said, "Bill, in a gas balloon you have time." I said, "What do you mean?" "In a gas balloon you have time to enjoy life." And he had this $100 bottle of champagne that somebody had given him for a balloon gift. And he was trying to impress Sherry. So he pulls out his best champagne, and we all have a nice cup of champagne in flight. He said, "Oh, in a balloon, you have time." And he takes out the bread and starts slicing bread. And after the champagne's all gone, he opens the beer. Man, this is all right. This is gas ballooning. This Gordon Bennett stuff, forget it. It's extreme stuff. This is gas ballooning. It is a way to enjoy life, and it's an experience you'll never forget. We flew for about 5 hours. The thermal started. We started developing some clouds, and we decided it was time to get on the ground about 10 o'clock in the morning. And we landed in a nice little field outside of I don't even know where. Anyway, we packed up and thanked Willie, and off we went down to Bern, Switzerland. It's about a day's drive south, and pretty pleasant drive through the German countryside into Switzerland. As soon as we pull into Bern, you get out of the car and you look south, and here's what you see, the Swiss Alps. And I'm thinking, tomorrow night, we're going to be flying over that stuff. A night flight, a dawn patrol. Can you imagine? Put yourself in that frame of mind now, a hot air pilot. You're going to go over that tomorrow night. So that's what was on my mind. There's our fancy uniforms. I'll tell you a little secret about the uniforms. But they just say USA, plain old USA with a USA flag. Can't get any better than that, right? USA 2 on the right side, USA 1 on the left. Andy had never had an ops team supporting him on these Gordon Bennetts. And he's flown, I think, in 8 Gordon Bennetts. And he always kind of wings it by himself, maybe has a weather guy helping him out, but he never had an ops team. And the French, they got a command post set up at a university. They got all these meteorologists and physicists and air traffic control. They got a real NASA command center going on. I said, Andy, we need something like that to support us. He said, you know, if you can get it together. So I got a team together from Louisville primarily, and Brian Beasley's a longtime gas guy. Matt McClinton, you maybe know him. Mike Montgomery's our local weather guy. Don's my brother. He's a doctor, a balloon pilot. I thought it'd be good to have a medical guy on the staff, and it was a good decision. And Randy Lefevre, many of you know him. He lives up in Huntsville now, but he's been doing weather for Andy for all these years. So that was our team. Had the normal flight briefing. One of the interesting things about the flight briefing, they told us where we could go. You could go in any of the red countries. You can't go in any of the blacked out or grayed out countries. So we were hoping to go, you know, maybe go to the east, but we didn't know. We got our weather, or our air traffic control briefing. Now this is another one of those things that's behind the scenes. Look at Italy. Follow the handouts shared via email. And there were 4 different email attachments they sent out. I got them on my phone, looked at them, and man, that's complicated. And read through them, but you know, we didn't think we were going to Italy. We thought we were going to go across the Adriatic. And I said, okay, I got it on my phone. If we need it, I'll pull it up. Bosnia was a no night flight VFR. We knew if we crossed the Adriatic, we might have a problem with that, so we were aware of that. And all the other countries, and this went on and on and on. But they kept sending us a lot of emails, and it was good information. This is one of the Italy emails. Various areas over there you can fly during the day, various areas you can't. Some you can fly at night, some you can't. Some this altitude, that altitude, and it was a mess. And about half of the Gordon Bennett pilots, the experienced Europeans, said, "The heck with that. We're going the other way. We don't want to go anywhere around Italy." So some of us went towards Italy, some of us elected not to, and this was the primary reason because of the air traffic control problems. We got a weather briefing. We had a high pressure system moving in. The only hint of bad weather was down in this area in the eastern Mediterranean, and that's a place they have what's called medicanes. They have a low pressure systems that hang there for days and weeks on end, and it just churns and churns and churns and doesn't move. And sure enough, there was a medicane going on off the coast of Greece, 50-mile-an-hour winds in the middle of the Medicane. But primarily up in Europe, we had great weather. We did a draw, and we kind of drew a crummy position. We were number 4. USA 1 drew, 13? And so you want to be the last off. You want to see what everybody else is doing and try to go 1 mile further than everybody else. So you want to be in the rear, and we were out front. Didn't like it, but it's the luck of the draw. This was interesting to me, being a hot air guy. We said, we got to be out the field at 9 a.m. Well, we're not leaving till dark. What do we got to be out the field at 9 a.m. for? We got to start setting up. They start standing the balloons up at 9 o'clock in the morning, filling them with gas. They got 25 balloons or so to fill with gas, and only a couple of trucks, and they start. So we were launch position 4, so 9 a.m. we were ready to start inflating. So we got our sandbags to hold the basket down and started filling early in the morning. That was kind of interesting. One of the things that everybody does is displays their country spirit. You know, they got their flag. We had our American flag, and I had my state flag. I'm from Kentucky. And before we went over there, Andy called me. We were doing some planning, and he said, I want to put you in charge of the shirts. You're going to do the uniform. I said, that's fine. I can do that. My sister-in-law does shirts. I'll get the shirts. What's the name of our balloon team? He said, well, I'm from Georgia, and I still fly the old Georgia flag. I ain't using that new one. We're flying the stars and bars. And the name of our balloon team is the Confederate Balloon Corps. I said, no, Andy, that's not going to work. I said, CNN's going to get a hold of that, and they're going to say, we got a bunch of racist Southern Americans over here, and you know, we've had a lot of problems. You've all heard the problems and the innuendos that are made about Southern people and the racism and stuff. he says, no, you know, the Confederate Balloon Corps has a history. The Union had their balloon corps during the Civil War. The Confederates tried to get theirs airborne, and then they just never got off the ground. They had 2 or 3 balloons. Is that right, Sam? They tried, and the balloons fell apart, whatever. But the Confederate Balloon Corps never got off the ground. And Andy's saying, this is our version. We finally got off the ground. I said, this doesn't seem right to me. So he's got the stars and bars, but I made those shirts that said USA won. I didn't put Confederate Balloon Corps on there. It's a good thing because the media was out there, and there I am in my USA shirt, no stars and bars on our shirts. But I mean, he meant well, and it's fine. It's just a little side note that, you know, you probably didn't know about that. So evening comes, all the pilots get together for one final picture. These 2 balloons, the netted balloons are kind of obsolete. They've gone to the quick fill balloons that don't have the nets over them, but the French still use the netted balloons, and there's a reason. They make ultralight balloons, very lightweight fabric that can't withstand I guess most of you felt a regular gas balloon, very heavy fabric, rubberized fabric. These balloons are very light, and they win just about every year. So they've got a competitive edge with their netted balloons. So that's the difference between those 2. So here it is, right before launch time, they open the field up. And what do you think the question is everybody comes up to your basket asks? How do you poop? How do you poop? And of course, we had our Texas bucket in there, our big honey pot, and they just thought that was cool, and they were happy. And then the next people will come up, how do you go to the bathroom? Right there. Oh, okay. But it's people have never been around balloons, know you're going to be up for 3 days. That's the only question they really have. So sunset rolls along, and it's time to go. They walk you to the podium just like we do here at Albuquerque. You've probably all seen that many times. Now, we're up in our launch spot, and it's time to take off. I got my little backpack, little Albuquerque giveaway, hanging on the side. It's got my iPad in it, it's got this and it's got that, spare radio, this, you know, all the stuff that I need. So there's my backpack. There's Andy's, a black one. Okay? Just store that in the back of your mind, because there's going to be something interesting about that little backpack a little later. The lady on the right is Andy's fiancée now. And we're ready to go. So we wave, the national anthem's playing, and off we go into the darkness about 8 o'clock. Here's USA 1, they're position 13. They get up there and off they go. If you've done a dawn patrol, you know one of the neatest things is to see all the city lights. And the city of Bern and everything was below us, and that was really cool. The German teams, they elected to stay low and go towards France, as did the French and quite a few of the other teams. And we all have these big spotlights if we have to do a night landing. So they were playing spotlights on each other since they were all stuck together in a little cluster. And they made some absolutely fabulous photos. You saw one on the cover of Ballooning magazine. So this was taken by the German team. And I believe this is the photo that might have been on the cover of Ballooning. But just a cool picture. You see the stars in the background. So we elected to go high, so we had to keep on going up. We went towards the east. And I don't think you can see it, but if you look up here, you see mountains sticking out of these clouds. That's the Swiss Alps, and they're up at around 15,000 feet. The peak altitude, I think, on the highest is 15.5, somewhere in that neighborhood. So we were going away from the highest mountain, but we decided 15.5 was where we needed to be to clear these mountains at night. So we expended quite a bit of ballast getting up that high. And all night long, in a gas balloon, I guess it would do it in a hot air balloon, but I've never really noticed it. But a gas balloon is constantly rotating, very slowly. and it just goes around and around. So now I see this mountain out in front of me. Okay, Andy, we got a, peak coming up. And, you look away, and the next thing you know, where'd that mountain go? Whoa, it's over my shoulder. So all night long, you're doing this. You're looking back and forth, where's the next obstacle? And pretty soon, it's coming around this way. And just all night. So neither one of us shut our eyes whatsoever. Neither one of us, thank you. Neither one of us shut our eyes the entire night. This was to me, it was like the Titanic, out over the Arctic Ocean. And you're seeing these big black icebergs sticking up, just waiting to get you. So that was quite an eye-opener, but it was the most breathtaking thing I've ever seen, flying over the opposite night. And we'd also heard the stories, especially here in Albuquerque, about the rotors on the backside of the mountains. And we were very concerned about getting too low and maybe get caught up in one of those. So we wanted to keep our altitude up well above any of that. But we were only doing about 3 to 4 miles an hour all night long. It was slow as molasses. So the rotors weren't a problem, I guarantee you. By daybreak, we were in last place. We had left Switzerland. We were right there with the Russians and Polish one. Some of the other people that were going east went up to 19,000 feet, and they really were going fast, but they expended a lot of ballast doing that. So they got out ahead of us. The other teams that stayed low were going to the west. And if you look right up here, Polish 2. See where they're at? They haven't gone anywhere. The weather forecast is if you stay low, you're going to remain in Switzerland for 2 days, and then the wind will pick up, and you may head out towards Poland. So they were laying low and hoping that weather forecast panned out. The rest of them, we were concerned that we would go out into the Mediterranean. And so they were heading towards France, and some of them made it all the way to the Atlantic coast. And if you look up here, there's two German teams. There's 2 German teams up there. Both German teams ended up almost to the Atlantic coast. 10 a.m. we're still over the Swiss Alps, and we had to maintain about 15,000 feet. So we were on oxygen for 2 days and trying to clear all the airspace problems and stuff. But it was quite cold. And you realize, you start thinking, what if we go down here? You're dead. You're dead. Nobody's going to come up there in a helicopter and get you. You're dead. Okay, so here it is, 1 p.m. Saturday. We took off Friday night, so this is almost a day later. Our speed down there is 5 miles per hour. We're at 17,000 feet, 5 miles per hour. Poking along, and we're still just in last place, still up in Switzerland. I think we're just about ready to cross the border. Here's where I started getting some weird stuff. Believe it or not, cell phones work great up there. I was texting back and forth to people, sending them pictures of the Swiss Alps, and we were just having a grand old time. I had bought this European plan on my phone. I think it's 1.5 gig of data and unlimited texting. Unlimited texting, okay, so I was firing these texts off. I didn't realize every time I sent a picture, I was using up my data. Well, about Saturday morning, I started getting all these weird texts. It says, no subject. No subject. What is going on? I thought, well, maybe I'm out of cell phone coverage. I'm over to the Swiss Alps. And then I thought, well, maybe I'm getting some text. I thought, well, maybe they don't like carrying pictures. That they won't give me that much bandwidth. So I didn't know what was going on. So I started telling my crew back home, text me, but don't send me any pictures. And it still wasn't working. I didn't realize I didn't have any more data on my phone. So Brian Beasley was keeping me posted on what was going on with the other teams. By Saturday evening, we see the Adriatic Sea. We still think we might be able to get over the Adriatic, over Bosnia, and head out towards the Black Sea. So we're kind of heading that way towards the sea, but it's sunset. And we're starting to turn a little bit more to the south. Okay, here's German 1 and 2. Polish. Poland is still sitting in Switzerland. And we're heading towards the Adriatic with Pole 2. Now, I know some of you people, when you wake up and see your spouse next to you in the morning, you think, man. Look what I'm waking up next to. Look what I got to wake up next to. Andy's a good guy. I enjoyed it. But we started seeing, we got our weather reports that the wind was turning more and more to the west, and we definitely were not going over the Adriatic. We were heading out towards Italy, right into the airspace that was going to be extremely complicated. I tried to get the airspace data on my phone. I didn't know that when you open up an email and you look at this attachment and then you close it, it goes back to the cloud. So I'm trying to get on my phone to pull up the Italian airspace. I thought, well, it was right here. Not there. Where's the attachment? Not there. No data. Can't download anything. I didn't have any of this airspace information. They didn't give us anything in paper. It all came electronically, and I was up the creek. So I emailed Matt. I said, guys, Gordon Bennett, I can't get email, and I need all the ATC procedures in text. You need to type it out and tell me what's what. And don't send me any attachments, no pictures. So I was quite concerned. So Matt sends me this. That's easy to understand, isn't it? Yeah, Zone 5, Fruit Looty, flight level 145. I think, oh man. And I couldn't figure out where all these places were, and it was a mess. As a result, we broke some airspace. We weren't supposed to be at a certain altitude. We got penalized 5% of our flight distance because I couldn't download the procedures. I didn't know what they were. We were talking with air traffic control, and they were perfectly happy with us. They were giving us clearances and telling us, you guys are good, but the rules of the Gordon Bennett says, doesn't matter what air traffic control tells you, it's the rules what the Gordon Bennett says. And Gordon Bennett says you can't fly through Milano's airspace, you can't fly through there, it doesn't matter what air traffic control tells you. So that's what the penalty was from. We had a breakdown of information. So we're heading south, heading out over Italy. The mountains are getting less and less, and we're starting to head down towards Rome. Andy knew from previous flights over there that if you stayed above 14,000 feet, everybody was happy. So we stayed up 15,000 feet for going into the third day now. There's our oxygen. Here's something that was new to me. I'd just seen the Hindenburg a couple days earlier, right? And Andy says, hey, we're going to heat up some water. I said, what? Yeah, we got this little propane stove, and I got the Hindenburg above me. We're going to fire this thing up. Okay, you're the pilot in command. So I learned over in Europe, they don't worry about that. They all smoke while they fly. They drink beer. They just have a good old time. They enjoy their flight. And us Americans are the ones that are so nervous about it. Do you have propane stoves in your balloons? You don't do that? You got time, Sam. You got time to take some beer. Enjoy life. Don't be a stick in the mud. So there's our honey pot. There's Andy's position. And it became our dining room table also. Mostly we ate cold stuff, sausage, Gatorade. And then we come to find out, here's the Germans flying in a nice big Cameron basket. They're drinking beer. They're drinking beer and we're drinking Gatorade. So those guys know how to do it over there, I'm telling you. There's the Medicaine that was aggravating us a little bit. We were concerned that if we missed Italy, we may get out into that area, but basically it stayed down in that area and we had high pressure up where we were, so the Medicaine never became a factor. Down towards Rome, we start to see a little bit of farmland. It was cool thinking about all the history there. And that was another thing, Hannibal crossed these Alps. This is where the Romans rode chariots. it's so cool seeing all that. And here we are, we cleared Rome's airspace, and Rome Air Traffic Control told us we can descend. You can go down to 6,000 feet or so, and you're out of our congested airspace, so have at it, guys. So we stayed up 14,000 feet, cleared the coast there at Gaeta, and you see we're doing really our best time. We're doing 20 miles an hour, and we're heading straight to Sicily. We got this. We're in first place right now. Our crew was heading down to Sicily. They were going to take a ferry out and meet us there the next morning, Sunday morning. And they saw us go past and they took this picture of us. And there's the Mediterranean Sea Sunday evening, heading out to sea. I asked Andy, I said, we okay on ballast? We used a whole lot, getting up and getting to this point. We still had about 9 bags left. He said, oh yeah, we got plenty. We're not going to use any tonight. We didn't use any last night, but we're good to go. So out to sea we go. We cross over Gaeta, Italy, doing 15 miles an hour, still heading southwest. And most incredible thing is seeing the Italian coastline. This is where Aristotle and Onassis used to hang out, with Jackie Kennedy, with his yachts and stuff. And you see all this, and wow. You fly over that at night, and you hear the parties going on these Italian islands, the rich, ultra-rich people. This is really cool. This is a castle down there, and I think the Italian Navy has a Navy base there. Went on a little further down the coast, and we head out to sea. One of the interesting things that I saw from there, you look down in the right-hand bottom corner, you see all those little circles? Now, what the heck is that? And there's boats parked in the middle of them. After I got back home, I looked on the internet, and those are, it's agriculture, fish farms. And if you look right here, you see lines of ropes, floats. They have, I guess, pearls. I don't know, growing oysters. I don't know what they're growing there, but it was pretty cool. And there it is. I pulled that off the internet right there at Gaeta. So here we are in first place, Sunday evening. But look up there in the top corner of that purple one. The Poles all of a sudden rocketed out of Switzerland, and they're heading through Poland, they're going through Poland right now. The Germans, who went all the way to the east coast practically, turned and did a U-turn. You follow their tweets. They came up here, and then they're heading up into Germany. So that the system, just like the weather people said, if you wait long enough, you'll pick up some speed. So we were in first place, but it was pretty obvious that we could not beat the Poles if they continued on at the rate they were going. We were having our own little neck-and-neck race with Poland 1. We were playing cat and mouse the whole way. Here's where things kind of went bad. It went bad many, many years ago for the people that lived in Pompeii, right? Things didn't work out well. It didn't work out well for us. We left the coast, and about, I guess, 9 o'clock at night, it was dark. ATC from wherever it was, they called us and they said, we lost your transponder. Well, the transponder we borrowed had an internal battery in it. It had a cord, and we had it on charge, but apparently the cord was broken. It was not charging the battery. So we had to take the transponder apart, put a new battery in it. We carefully disconnect the antenna, let go of the antenna, over the side, 2 miles down into the ocean, our transponder antenna. Called ATC, I said, do you see it now? No. We have a malfunction. He said, that's okay, you guys are out of our airspace, just give us a position report every half hour. So from then on, we kept giving them our latitude, longitude, and they were happy with us. About 11 p.m., we crossed that last little peninsula there. We're still doing 12 miles an hour, still going the way we want to go, and everything is happy until we hit, oh, there's my antenna. Until we hit this inversion around midnight. All of a sudden we start to see a big fog bank out in front of us. Oh, and back up a little bit. At this time, somewhere in the late evening, ATC told us we could descend. We've been up 15,000 feet for 2.5 days now, and we were cold, we were ready to get off oxygen, so we descended down, and Andy vented. He vented some gas out. We made our descent, we rounded out at about 6,000 feet or so, and from that point on, we never could keep that balloon flying. It just kept going. We kept throwing ballast out, ballast out. We don't know if the top cap didn't seal properly or this inversion we hit. But when we hit this inversion, our gas in the balloon was ice cold. We hit this warm, moist air rolling in off the sea, and it started raining on us. The water started condensing on the cold balloon, runs down, drip, 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 and they carry an umbrella on board. So I pulled the umbrella out just to keep the drips off of us. And but we were having problems at this point. We could not keep the balloon flying. At this point, I'm talking to Andy. It became obvious we were down to about 3 bags of ballast now, and we were getting a turn to the left or to the east, and we were going ashore. We just cleared Mount Vesuvius, and there's a pretty good mountain range in front of us. And we were down to 5,000 feet, and there was no way we were going to climb up to 10,000 feet again with 3 bags of ballast. I said, Andy, we're going to have to land, right? And, well, we might keep this thing up to daybreak, and then if this thing levels out, we'll keep it up to daybreak, and we'll be fine. I said, Andy, let's talk about this. Because I'm trying to learn, what are we going to do if we got to make a night landing here in Salerno? Oh, we're just going to keep flying as long as we can. I said, does that mean we're going to go up and land on the side of that mountain up there? Well, we're going to fly as long as we can. I said, let's talk about this. He said, I said, Andy, wake up! He was just, and I remember what Willie said, in a gas balloon you have time. You have time. It's only 1 in the morning. You got time. So Andy's taking a nap, and I'm sitting here trying to figure this whole thing out. So here's the city of Salerno in front of us. That's a big port to the left. And we crossed this thing, and we were down to about 2,000 feet, and we were descending thinking we were going to maybe land somewhere in Salerno without going up that big mountain. I asked Andy, I said, don't you think we ought to notify Gordon Bennett, let him know we're going to make a nighttime landing? Pretty dangerous on the side of that mountain, you know. All the people in Pompeii think it was kind of dangerous. I'd like to let him know where we're going to land. He said, nah, we'll let him know after we land. I said, oh yeah, BS. So I got on, did a little text to Matt, to my crew, and I said, we're going to make a night landing at Salerno, notify Gordon Bennett. Do not call me back. I didn't want any phone to ring saying, what's going on? And Andy's sitting there, you know, because he already told me don't tell anybody. So there's another little secret you can keep to yourself. I disobeyed my piloting command and went ahead and made that text. And I think it was important because a little while later, Andy realized we may not make it ashore. He says, you better call Gordon Bennett and see if they can get a Coast Guard boat, come out of this port here, and maybe tow us ashore. All right, so we were out in this bay floundering around, and one time I thought we were going to be able to land on these docks. They have big, massive docks where they load cargo, not too many light poles, and we were heading kind of towards that, and I think, you know, we might be able to make it there. And then the daggone thing turned around, and we started heading back out to sea, and we were heading towards there, so we thought we were going to land on this hillside right here, which is not very nice. I mean, it's pretty steep stuff. They got tunnels for the roads to go through, so that's how steep it is. So 2 a.m. we're down to 1 bag of ballast, and we are still 3 miles from shore, and we're going back out to sea. And this is not good. We called Gordon Bennett, Coast Guard didn't respond, and we're so now we're down to starting to throw stuff out. We had 1 bag of ballast that we didn't want to throw out because we wanted that if we did get ashore, we could pour that over these high-rise buildings instead of throwing batteries on top of these buildings. So we saved our last bag of ballast for that. And we had about, I think it was about 8 or so of these motorcycle batteries. Started chucking them out, $50 a piece. And I'm like, oh man, throw another one. And 2 a.m., keep track of the time here, 2 a.m. we're throwing batteries. 3 a.m., an hour later, you got time, Bill, an hour later.
Yeah, right.
We're still a mile from shore, and the pucker factor is starting to take hold here. I'm stripping my clothes off because I know I'm going for a swim. And I had all this Arctic gear on, and I didn't want to be in the water with, muckalucks and all this stuff. So I'm stripping all that off, putting it in a bag. And Andy says, we're going to have to start throwing tanks out. We had talked to our weather guy. He said, if you can climb up and get some altitude, you can start getting some of that forward motion. He said, it's kind of like the Albuquerque box. We said, oh yeah, we got a big mountain range in front of us, and that cold air is coming down there, pushing us back out to sea. We got a warm inversion coming ashore up high. There's the Albuquerque box. When he said Albuquerque box, I said, that's it. And so out goes a $500, $400 oxygen tank. And that got us up to 1,700 feet. And we're starting to make our way towards that boat dock on the right there. There's what it looked like. The city of Salerno is a tourist city. They got a big soccer stadium somewhere right in here. High-rise buildings. All the rich people go there and look out from their condos, their 30-story condo buildings. And then behind that is the mountains starting up, all the dark area. And then behind that is more mountains. So we're starting to head towards this boat dock. And we threw one oxygen tank, and we're floundering around. We're towards the dock, and Andy says, throw the other one. Luckily, these were old steel tanks. They were very heavy, great for ballast. I'm glad they weren't the lightweight Kevlar, $1,500 a pop or $2,000 a pop. These were the $400 steel oxygen tanks. Threw the second one out right by the boat dock, and that got us up a pretty good altitude. We had a hammer to break up the bags, the sand in the bags. If it freezes at altitude, the hammer went. We had that umbrella, the umbrella went. Started throwing batteries. If you ever seen that show, Drain the Ocean, where they drain the ocean to show the Titanic and where everything was spread on the ocean floor. If they drained the ocean here, you would see an umbrella, a hammer, about 8 batteries, an oxygen tank, another oxygen tank. And when we threw that last oxygen tank up, we really soared up. We went up, I think, about 4,000 feet, maybe 5,000 feet. And we saved our last sandbag once we were over the city. So we cleared here's the soccer stadium. I thought maybe we could land in there, but man, it's like, a college football arena. There was no way we were going to land that balloon in there. And the rest of the area was just really congested. So we started heading up the mountain. 3:43 a.m. now. This all started around midnight. So almost 4 hours later, we're still trying to figure this out. We got plenty of time. No hurry. I remember that right here. We were over the city. We dropped our sandbag and we were getting ready to start throwing our stuff out. And Andy and I both, the balloon was starting to go back down again. We got time. We emptied our bladders to that's ballast. We got time, Andy. We got time. And we emptied our bladders just to get, because we were heading back down again at a pretty rapid rate. 3:53 a.m. This is another little tale. I was trying to find out about Andy and this Gordon Bennett stuff, and I talked to my buddy Matt McClinton and his dad Scott. I said, who is this Andy guy? Is he safe to fly with? And Scott says, well, if you don't mind landing, dangling at the end of a rope, naked, he's okay to fly with. So they knew we were in trouble. I knew we were in trouble. We all knew we were in trouble. And we were going into the side of this mountain. And I just wanted Matt to know that we were, we still had it all together. Making our approach to land, not naked yet. So here we are, we got all of our gear, the remaining gear. We have our water survival suits, our cold weather gear, all bagged up. My backpack, his backpack, all this stuff laying up on the bench. And he says, when we make our approach and get ready to land, when I say go, you throw everything out. That was our last ballast. By the way, we did have a trail rope, but they talked us into using a lightweight trail rope. It was just I think a 1/4 inch line, 1/2 inch line with a sandbag on the end of it. what the Europeans said to do, and Andy said, well, we'll give it a try. So we had a rope, but it wasn't much. But that was up on the bench. So everything was on the bench, and I'm the guy that's going to drop all this stuff when Andy gives me the command. So we're heading in, and these blue dots really don't tell the story. They were taken every 10 minutes by my tracking device. But we came in, and I thought we were going to hit this cliff here. It's a rock quarry. We came right up to the front edge of that, and the cold air coming off the mountain, the Albuquerque box, turned around and pushed us right on back out. And we did a U-turn, and we came out over this orchard. So here it is, 4 a.m. This all started at midnight, right? 4 a.m. We're doing 5 miles an hour. We got about a 500, we're about 500 feet above the ground. We got a 250-foot descent rate. Kind of high rate for a gas balloon without a lot of ballast. So we come in, we think we're going to hit this house, we clear the house, and lo and behold, right below us opens up a really nice orchard. We see all the rows of trees, everything is great. At about 100 feet, Andy says, ballast. So I threw everything out. I threw my backpack, I threw my cold weather gear, I threw the survival suits, everything went overboard. Then we're about 75 feet, 50 feet flaring, and I see these white utility poles in front of us. We're heading straight for them at about 3 miles an hour, but here at the other side of the museum, there's power lines, and we're heading straight for them. We just rounded out almost perfectly over the trees. I hollered power lines. Andy did what he needed to do. He ripped it out, and down we came with a thud. So after we're on the ground, Andy goes and picks up everything. There was my pack. There's Andy's pack. What's going on here? And I throw my iPad, my radio, my beloved Balloon Fiesta pack out, and he doesn't throw his. You son of a gun. So anyway, I got over it. We hit pretty hard. Oh, and another part of the story, I had, right after we saw power lines, he ripped it out. I knew we were going to hit hard. I swept my hand across the bench to see if there was anything else I could throw out as ballast to try to slow us down. I found a battery and a half a bottle of water or something. They went overboard, and I was leaning this way, searching the bench, and that's when we hit. And I'm on my left. I had a lot of weight on my left foot doing this, and I broke my leg. So as soon as we're on the ground, we did what we needed to do, let them know we landed, and they tweeted out that we were fine, almost. We landed right between some olive trees, and the balloon was unharmed. We missed the house, and had a pretty good landing spot. There's what was in front of us. You can see here's the rock quarry that we almost ran into. You can see these utility poles. They were white concrete poles. And at night, with no lights, we had thrown all of our batteries now, so I didn't have a floodlight. And so I saw those white poles, and I knew we had power lines, and my broken leg was much better than all the burns we may have encountered. Or the Hindenburg. Remember the Hindenburg? Okay, so 2 days, 8 hours, 20 minutes later, we landed at Salerno. They docked us a little bit, but we still finished up second place. So that was pretty good. Next slide, please. Next slide. So there's the Poles. They went ahead and won the race. They beat us. Even if we had made it out to Sicily, they knew where we were. They had the advantage just to fly a couple more miles further. So I don't think we could have won the way we went. And my hat's off to them for being so patient and sitting there for 2 days waiting for the weather to improve. Germany too, who was over in this angle at one point, ended up in the middle of Germany. So it was a great race, one of the best they said in a long, long time. There's the x-rays. They took me to the Italian hospital, and they took one look at it, and they said, well, what we do is we'll admit you and we'll do surgery tomorrow and pin it. And I'm starting to think, my crew needs to get back to Switzerland. I'm gonna be stuck here in Salerno. One of my crew's gonna have to stay here. We only got one vehicle. This is gonna be a logistical mess. And he says, but we can put you in a soft boot, crutches, and you can go home and get it treated. So I get on the phone with my brother doctor who is on our team and says, take a look at these photos, and he goes down to the ER and consults with the orthopedic, and they said, he's fine, bring him on home. So I was able to just get a boot and come on home. The other was balloon mail. All of you probably seen balloon mail. We did the balloon mail thing. That night we went to a restaurant, and Andy signed off my logbook. This was my second gas flight, so it qualified me for my gas certificate. And lo and behold, right there where we're eating is a picture of the bay where we almost died. I said, this is really appropriate. So we had a good laugh about that, and he signed my logbook, and that was the end of that. Off we go back to Switzerland. There's Andy and Julie. So we get to the leaning tire, and I'm walking down a little bit to take a stupid, picture with my crutch and stuff. And I see Andy back there on his knee. And what's going on? I go back, and he proposed to Julie. He said, that ring flew with us. I said, where was the ring? He said, in my backpack. Can you imagine if I had thrown his backpack out? Oh.
That would have been bad.
So yeah, Julie has a tale to tell with that ring. It was in his backpack, and I felt bad about, bad mouthing him over his backpack. So there I am with my crutches and holding up the leaning tire. All the tourists do it. You see them all back there doing the same thing. Anybody been to Pisa, you've done the same thing, right? You got to do that picture. And there's our lovely engaged couple. We were just beat on the way back home. They have a welcome back party there back in Switzerland. Next slide, please. We checked out the balloon, had no damage to the balloon. The IMers came out and did an inspection on it, and everything was good to go. There's the welcome back party. And then they have the dinner and the presentation of awards. Next slide, please. And there's the winners there, Poles. Germans are on the right. That's Willie Eimer's son in the gray suit. And that's pretty much the end of that. And there's the race results. The Poles went 711 miles. We went 548. And Germany 2 went 522. German 2 had a chance to beat us. They got caught in a snowstorm. And they had to land that morning, Monday morning. So that saved us from losing a spot there. Next slide, please. People ask me, was it worth it? Here I am, a hot air pilot, just like most of you or crew. Was it worth it? Well, it was expensive. It was expensive, and I want you to know what it takes, because I know many of you might have in your back of your brain, man, I'd like to maybe get with Sam and maybe do that sometime. But here's what it takes. The entry fee was team expenses. These were hotels, rental car, and renting the balloon. This is all my half now. Next slide, please. Airfare, it's expensive getting to Europe. Next one. Training flight with Willie was $300. Lost equipment, $600. I had to get a flight physical, and the total, one more slide please, was about $7,000. Now, was it worth it? It was worth every penny of it. Just, I didn't even count that. I thought that was, I should have been in the right position, and I wasn't doing what and Andy told me, he said, prepare for a hard landing. I mean, he did what he was supposed to do. And I've been telling people that thousands of times. I got 1,300 hours, and I don't know how many times I've told my passengers, hold on, prepare for a hard landing. So I'm not that great of a pilot. I tell them that all the time, hold on. So $7,000, was it worth it? It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience for me. Maybe not, maybe I'll get to do it again, maybe not, I don't know, but it was really worth it. the flying over the Alps was incredible. The experience of just experiencing gas was incredible. My hat's off to these guys that fly gas. It's an incredible experience. Barbara and Peter, you guys have been flying gas for a long time. It's just something that you all do is just incredible. My hat's off to you. Would I do it again? I'd have to think long and hard about going back to Europe. Europe is a lousy place to fly. You're surrounded by ocean, thunderstorms, this and that. I would in a heartbeat do the America's Challenge. But going to Europe, I don't know. So that's, who knows. Next slide, please. So that's my take on the Gordon Bennett. Any quick questions? I know I've kept you a long time. I want to just quickly talk about long jumps. Do I have time? Timekeeper?
Yes.
Okay. I've been doing long jumps for 5-6 years, and it's just something that I've enjoyed doing. It's a challenge. First one I did, Troy Bradley beat me by 1 mile, and it made me mad. He went, I don't know, I forget what it was, but he beat me by a mile. But anyway, I've been doing them, and the neat thing about long jumps, I strongly encourage everybody to do it. You're not competing against anybody else, you're competing against yourself. You're testing yourself, you're putting yourself in an environment that you normally don't fly in. You're going high, you're talking to ATC, you might be breathing oxygen, so it's a really neat thing to do, and there's nobody out there to compete against but yourself, you know. So 2017, I had made several long jumps. 2016, I think Sam caught me down in North Carolina. 2017, I was just a couple miles short of the record, 3 or 4 miles short of the record, and I wanted to try to break the record. So I had 40 gallons of fuel, that's the rule, standard balloon. You got to fly in the middle of the winter, December to March, and you got to be down before sunset. Next slide, please. There's my history. Troy Bradley beat me by 100, I think he had 174 miles. So anyway, I progressed each year, learned a little more. Next slide, please. I had an old balloon. This is nothing special. This is my brother's old 1998 Aerostar. Had 347 hours on it. This balloon, if you've been to Leon, Mexico, was the one that went in the lake about 4 years ago. And we fished it out of the lake, brought it home, and washed it out with a fire hose. So it is not a special balloon. It is special, but it's nothing special. Next slide, please. There's an old rule that 1 pound of weight equals a 1 mile in distance. So you got to get rid of weight. And I got rid of some weight here. I lost about 15, 20 pounds. Took all the weight out of the balloon. You don't see any leather on there. And just stripped it down as much as I could. So I was flying at 815 pounds gross weight. Next slide, please. Single burn. For the weather, you need a high pressure system below 10,000 feet because you don't want to land in high wind conditions. Everybody likes to land on a nice, easy day. So you need a high pressure system down where you're going to land. You need clear skies. You're flying VFR, you don't want to be in the clouds. And you need reasonable landing conditions. But you're also looking for some winds aloft. And we do that in the wintertime when we get these Arctic clippers that are coming down from Canada. And there's a low jet stream, and you can usually get some pretty good wind off of those. So that's what we're looking for. Next slide, please. There was a forecast. The red shows the winds above 100 miles an hour, or 90, I think 90 knots or better. So we started planning a couple days out, we activated the plan a couple days out and started heading north. Next slide, please. My nephew came up with this real neat PowerPoint presentation. If anybody's interested in it, it's not PowerPoint, it's Excel. You can calculate the amount of, or you put in the amount of fuel, your weight and everything, and it'll tell you how long you can fly. So it's a pretty cool thing, and that told me that I could fly, I could do this thing. So it showed me that I could fly almost 9.5 hours, and if I stayed up at 15,000 feet, I could probably go as far as I wanted to go. Next slide, please. It showed my range. At 15,000 feet, it showed almost 800 miles. Next slide. So we planned to go up to Sioux City, Iowa, and land in Tennessee. We had kind of strong winds east of that, and we thought if we could land along the Mississippi River, everything would be good there. Next slide, please. Checklist, next slide. Got to have a checklist. We stayed at Whiteman, next slide, on the way out. And then we got to Sioux City, Iowa. That was our plan. And next slide. I started thinking, I'm in Sioux City, Iowa. Right across the river is what? Sioux City, North Dakota, or South Dakota. Now, North Dakota, or South Dakota sounds like a heck of a lot further than Iowa from Kentucky. So we crossed the river and said, we'll just take off over there. So that was our plan. We ended up in Vermilion. That's where we really thought we were going to take off. Spent the night there. Next slide, please. And everything was good. We checked into Best Western. Going to wake up the next morning, eat breakfast, go out in the parking lot, launch, and be out at sunrise. Next slide, please. Next slide. At 5 a.m. I got up, looked at the weather, and all of a sudden there's some clouds developing, coming at us, and we're right under that cloud deck. So next slide. I called Matt, and he was providing me the track, and he said, you need to go about 50 miles north. So we headed on up to Lenox, South Dakota, and I filed a flight plan to Glasgow, Kentucky, VFR flight plan. So that's a good target. All right, next slide. And Glasgow would have given me 700 miles. That's what I was trying to do. Got a little behind talking to ATC on the phone. We didn't get out of there right at sunrise. We were about 15 minutes late. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. All right. To my left and to my right were clouds, and I had this, it looked like an alley right through all the cloud cover. So I thought, man, this is great. So everything was working well. So next slide, keep on. It's amazing how cold it is outside the basket, and on the inside, the radiant heat, and you got the wrap around the basket, it's 40, 50 degrees inside the basket. So it is not terribly cold to do a long jump. Don't think you got to be an Eskimo. I did have a radio problem. I had this nice little mic I took off of my UHF radios, and I put it on my air traffic control radio, and it worked fine. Well, I got up there and tried to call approach, and nobody could hear me. They could hear my radio clicking. I never had a radio the entire flight. Turns out that radio microphone is, I don't know, it works on UHF radios, but it sure didn't work on a VHF radio. And I didn't think to unplug it. So I was doing about 80 miles an hour, and I needed to get a little bit faster, so I climbed up a little bit higher. I had oxygen. Next slide. I use these slides for some of the training class, but at 15,000 feet, there I am going 100 miles an hour, and I thought that was pretty cool. I took a picture of it, and I was pretty proud of that. After a while, it just got so old, I was at 100 miles an hour for 5, 6, 7 hours, well, 5 hours anyway. Without having a radio, I was concerned about some of the restricted areas that were in my area. And I was texting Matt back and forth, and he was trying to give me a little guidance. Next slide, please. So we were able to circumvent St. Louis airspace. You got to have a working radio if you go over Class B airspace. And we got around to R3702 down at Fort Campbell. Next slide. Across the Mississippi. There's my top speed. I was right at Evansville, Kentucky. No, that's not quite top speed. But I was at 15,000 feet doing 101 miles an hour. Next slide. Next slide. Looks like I got plenty of fuel. There's my top speed. I was doing 109 miles an hour at Evansville at 16,000 feet. Next slide. Next slide. You all know about hypoxia. We don't need to drill on that. One of the problems I did have with altitude was that I wasn't really aware of dehydration. Next slide, please. And about halfway through the flight that afternoon, I'm thinking, you know, I'm an old guy, and I usually pee 3 or 4 times by this time of day, and I hadn't gone yet. So I peed in a cup, and that's what I got out. That was 5 hours into the flight. I said, man, I'm in trouble. And I didn't bring much water because I don't drink much water. I brought 2 bottles of water, and I'd already drank all those. And then my back started hurting. I said, oh no, I got kidney failure. You know, I was getting really worried. So next slide, please. Enough of that. And then my final decision to descend, I still had plenty of fuel. And I had gone, did my second 100, I made 700 miles. And I thought, you know, 750 is real nice. So I said, I'll go to Tompkinsville and I'll meet you all there. So I called my crew and let them know where I was going. So I stayed up a little bit longer. I had filed a VFR flight plan to where? Bowling, or, yeah. And you know, I flew right over the numbers of that runway. I flew right over the runway numbers. Unbelievable. Next slide, please. There's Glasgow. There's my flight path, and I swear I could have dropped a marker and hit the numbers there. That's where I filed my flight plan, and that's incredible. I thought it was incredible to fly 8 hours, and Matt says, take off, move a little bit here, and you go right over Glasgow. And sure enough, so my head's off. Next slide, please. I was still going 100 miles an hour. I had all kinds of fuel. I could have flown another, I was only using about 3.5 gallons an hour at this point. I could have flown another hour and a half, but I would have been in Knoxville. And from where I landed to Knoxville was a lot of mountains, Appalachian Mountains. So I landed, I came down as steep as I could. Next slide, please. At Tompkinsville. Had some traffic below me at that little airport. The guy was doing touch and goes, and I said, oh man, I'm coming down, and he's coming around again. But finally he saw me and climbed up and came up and waved at me, and everything was cool. Kept on down. Landed in this, crossed some power lines, landed in this guy's cattle farm. The red line is where power lines were. I had never flared whatsoever from 15,000 feet till when I initiated my descent until I came over that last set of power lines. I never flared. Right when I crossed the power lines, I got on the burner. You know, I tapped it a little bit, but I flared for the only time right there where I landed. It was incredible. Next slide, please. And the wind was only 4 miles an hour, so I had a nice stand-up landing. Next slide. And there I am inside the cattle field. And everything's good. There's the owner came out to greet me. I had a space blanket that I was going to wrap around the uprights and try to keep warm, but I never used it. I went 753 miles. By the time they do the Great Circle distance, they knocked it down to 750, which was a national record. And I flew 8 hours and 32 minutes. Still had 9 gallons of fuel left. I was burning 3.5, 4 gallons an hour. Like I said, I could have gone to Knoxville. May have gone over to visit Sam again, but my kidneys hurt. Man, I got to land. Next slide. So that's, of course, the media came out. Next slide. So the top 10 long jumps, Al Hansen had 693. I finally beat his record, and you can see some of the other people. So that's the story of my long jump. Again, I strongly encourage everybody to do it. We did one 2 weekends ago with the Balloon Club. We had 6 balloons. We flew 65 miles, something like that. My wife flew with me. She got to go to 14,000 feet for a little bit and then back down. It was just an incredible club experience. I strongly encourage everybody to go out and test your skills a little bit, to get out in the wintertime, do a fun thing, and heck, turn it in. You never know, you know, you might be in a history book. They did give me the Shield Trogger for that, and then I'm supposed to receive the Montgolfier for the best balloon performance in 2017. So that's